business today. You're still here with us, and of course some of the things that are very, very important to us are the issues of people with disability in Uganda here. And of course we are very lucky maybe that in this country, Uganda is one of the few countries in the world to recognize sign language in its constitution. Now what we're seeing is that at least 4 out of every 25, or we are looking at 16% of the population are disabled. In this particular case, applying this estimated to today's Ugandan population, we're looking at about 5 million Ugandans being people with disabilities, and we must be able to appreciate that and help them. With me in studios is Rose Achayo Obol, who is the chairperson of the Board of Directors, National Union of Women with Disabilities of Uganda. You're very welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, viewers.
Indeed. Right next to her, their own sign language is Mugalu Muhammad, who is a sign language interpreter who is going to be joining us today, and of course making work a whole lot easy for our friends out there. When we talk about people with disabilities, is this something we have appreciated as a country?
Yeah, I must say yes. The country has appreciated because of some of the laws that are in place. For example, the Persons with Disabilities Act 2006. That shows that yes, as a country we have appreciated if we are able to have an act for persons with disabilities. Secondly, as a country we have also appreciated persons with disabilities because of the government structures where we have seen persons with disabilities are being represented in the political wing.
Okay.
Yes, so these are some of the things that we see, yes, government has tried to appreciate, but of course this does not mean that everything is fine.
Okay. Now, women and men with disabilities can and are very, very willing to be productive members of the society, that is in both developing and of course developed countries, promoting more inclusive societies and employment opportunities for people with disabilities. In this particular case requires improved access to basic education.
Yes.
We're looking at vocational training relevant to labor market needs, jobs suited for their skills, and also interests and abilities. In this particular case, we're adapting to what is needed out there in the societies. Is this something you feel that we have been able to give a very conducive environment for people with disabilities? We're talking about it. We're talking about education, we're talking about work environment, and things of that nature. Have we actually been able to do these things?
I think I must say no. Somehow, yes.
Okay.
Why am I saying I may start with yes? Yes, we have education system which the government is looking at persons with disabilities, especially having the special needs section. For example, person with visual impairment, we have the units that takes care of them. We also have the hearing impairment. We have the school for the deaf. And then we can also say that there is an affirmative action that the government has put in place for taking persons with disabilities at higher institutions of learning. But of course, this is not so big because the numbers have remained the same. And every other year, the number of students that go into these higher institutions of learning are also increasing. But when you look at the enrollment, especially when we are talking about at primary level, this is where a big challenge is seen, that number of children with disabilities are not accessing this education because of a number of reasons, which varies from accessibility, the learning materials, the teachers that may not be able to know how to handle these persons with, or these children with disabilities. So the environment itself is not very conducive, and also the policy that talks about education does not really focus about the other disability categories. For example, people with slow learners, the slow learners. You have seen these days how children go to schools and sometimes teachers want to concentrate on those bright children. So then what happens with the slow learners? What happens with the children who do not have sign language interpreters in the classrooms? So all these are some of the challenges that we are faced up with education part. But now when it comes to employment, employment is a very, very big challenge. For example, look at the private sector, look at the government side. The government has given persons with disabilities affirmative action at the university levels. But there is no provision that even after the universities, what then happens? Because a number of employers, including the government, especially with the District Service Commission, sometimes when the persons with disabilities apply, they look at your disability, not the potentiality that this person with disabilities may be having. The other thing is that these are different disability categories. Some of them need facilities to enable them perform in doing their work. I want to take an example for visually impaired persons. They have a special facility that requires them to perform. That is having, you know, we are now in the technology world. They have what they call a software called JAWS. So these JAWS have to be installed into our computer to enable this person work very well. The interpreters needs to be there for a deaf person. And then sometimes the environment, for example, I may say with the TV station now, if you are to get somebody on a wheelchair, how would that person access this place? Do you have enough facilities that can be able to make this person access this venue or this station in a very dignified way? So these are some of the things that hinders the employment of persons with disabilities. Now, when you go to the private sector, these are people who think about profits more than any other thing. So when you need assistive devices, for them they will think that, how will we manage to make profits? And because of that, most of them look at it and say, these people are very expensive. But also sometimes people look at a structure of a person, because the disabled people have different types of deformities. And for you, you would want to present somebody because you want to present a person with a structure that maybe your clients will admire. And now you are seeing somebody who is walking with crutches, somebody on a wheelchair, somebody walking like somebody having a break dance. You would feel this person may make some of my clients not think we are serious. And yet, these are really things that shouldn't make disabled people not to be taken. They need to look at what is it, what delivery will I make if I employ it? Yes.
So we're saying that the freedom may not necessarily be there because of things like discrimination.
Exactly. That is the biggest problem. Discrimination, which brings about stigma in a person. Because if disabled people are around in this studio, how many of you or how many of the staff are willing to associate with this person freely? So there is that discrimination that may make this person isolated. Now once you are isolated, you get that stigma in you that maybe I'm not wanted in this family. And that can also affect your performance in one way or the other.
So what people don't understand, can we agree that people don't understand that being disabled doesn't mean you can't be productive?
True. I must say yes. it is a perception that people have because they may not be aware. But those who are aware normally appreciates. They appreciate that, yes, these people can deliver. But this is something that not just only the people. This is something that originates even from the family.
Yeah.
The family members sometimes also tend to look at this disabled person. And because it has originated from the household, from the very family, it then extends to the neighborhood, and then eventually it goes outside.
People have special names. That
People and of course that attachment that they give instead of using my name Rose. In Uganda, in so many areas, people have words that they use, the language that they use for calling. For us in Acholi, they can say Langolo. And then I know in Uganda here they say Mlema. And those words are very demeaning in nature. Because
the words that are used, you say Mulema, there are some people who say Kasiru,
yes,
people who say Masana, you know, and it becomes very, very difficult for you, especially growing up, to know that you're capable of actually achieving a whole lot. I, for one, relate to that. Growing up, I used to be called Masana, you know, and oftentimes I'd go back home and say, am I any different from anyone else? But then I was told, no, you can always achieve.
Exactly.
So depending on where you come from, who is encouraging you, and so on. So are we looking? Let's look at our policies. We've been looking at the Act here of 2006, but are policies good enough? Are we seeing gaps? What is happening?
Yeah, I must say that these policies have a very big gap. One, Uganda has ratified to some of these international laws, international laws, regional laws, and for us, the laws that we have here for persons with disabilities, we really need these laws to be in compliance. Because if you have ratified, then why do you make a law that is not in line with what you have already agreed on? So the Persons with Disabilities Law Act 2006 has, of course, some gaps, which if they are to develop a new law, they need to look at that 2006. What are those gaps? Yes, and they try to work on those gaps so that we are able to have a law that is very inclusive, that has the standards, international standards. For example, if we are talking about reasonable accommodation, the law should be able to take care of that. If we are talking about living the Sustainable Development Goals, how is our law looking at all this? For example, in the Sustainable Development Goal 6, when we are talking about women, we need to talk about women in totality, whether women with disabilities or not women with disabilities. So for us, we are saying let the laws that we are developing for persons with disabilities be compliant with the standard, with the international standards.
So we're seeing a lack of inclusiveness somewhere.
Exactly, inclusiveness without leaving any other disability category. Recently, there has been a talk, we have been watching it on TV, about members of parliament fundraising for people living with albinism. Truly, we appreciate the challenges persons living with albinism are faced up with. But do we need to make a law for persons with albinism separately from persons with disabilities? Because they are all within the family of disabilities. Because once we start making these fragmented laws, then we may not be able to achieve what we really want to do at the end of it all. So for us, we are saying, let this law be comprehensive enough that can take care of every disability categories. And if there's need to have emphasis for those minority disabilities that we see sometimes they are marginalized, within also the disability movement, then there's need to have emphasis on clauses for them.
Okay, so Rose, we're running out of time. Real quick, a final word to the people who are watching you out there. Speak for the National Union of Women with Disability of Uganda, but also generally for the people, because we have been talking about where the challenges are, where the gaps are, but talk out there to the people. We talked about sensitization. People don't know, people don't have information about these things.
Yeah, I agree with you that persons with disabilities, first of all, we need to look at them as human beings. Their disabilities are basically barriers that affects them to, or hinders them to perform certain things because of the environmental barriers. So for me, what I am saying, for example, the women with disabilities, these are women with disabilities who are heightened with discrimination. There are so many abuses that go around them. For example, sexual exploitation, access to property or even control, reproductive health rights. We are also seeing that sometimes they are overprotected, that they even do not allow them to actually get outside there and know what is supposed to be done. And because of this overprotection, especially from the parents and from the caretakers, this affects somebody's learning, because this person is never exposed and the person cannot know what exactly is going outside the world. So for me, what I am appealing to people outside there, what we need you people to look at us as human beings, give us all the love that it is required, give us all the support to enable us to perform, and we indeed shall be able to do it.
Yes, thank you so much. Rose Achayo Obol, who is the chairperson of a board of directors, the National Union of Women with Disabilities in Uganda. She's been able to point out a couple of things. And right next to her there is Mugalu Mohammed, who is a sign language interpreter. And of course, he has been able to help us communicate to our brothers and sisters out there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I do appreciate you so much.
Your name
Indeed.
again?
Rowena Kajumba.
Rowena.
Indeed.
Yeah,
and I'm
you.
signing out right now, and I'm wishing you a very, very beautiful day. Rowena Kajumba here for Business Day.